As usual, I've placed the next drawing that we're going to use in the demo project. It's called Using the Mouse. Using a mouse is pretty fundamental to most products nowadays that are based on either a PC or a Mac. And you'll use a mouse to generate objects, documents, drawings. All depends on what piece of software you're using. However, using the mouse in AutoCAD is quite different sometimes. There are tools on the mouse that you might not be aware are actually available to you. For example, if I roll up and down on the wheel on a mouse, I can zoom in if I roll the wheel up. I can zoom out if I roll the wheel down. If I place the crosshair in a certain area of the drawing and roll up, I zoom in using that crosshair as the center of the zoom. If I roll back, the crosshair is the center of the zoom out as well. Now, let's say I zoom in way too far, so I go in way too far like that. Can't see where I am on the drawing, don't know which drawing I'm in even. If I double click on the wheel and use it as a button, it does what is called a zoom extent and zooms to the extent of the visible drawn objects on the drawing. Very useful if you get lost, if you zoom in too far or you zoom out too far. Now there's one more tool that's very, very useful on that wheel. If I move the crosshair somewhere, let's say I zoom in here, and you can see there's a wiring block there. You can see the screws where the connections screw in. Now, I might want to pan to another part of the drawing quickly. I hold down the wheel, little hand appears, can you see it there? And I move the mouse, and as long as I've got that wheel held down, I can pan across to another part of the drawing. I can then zoom out and look at that part of the drawing. I can then double click on the wheel to zoom extents again. So you can see how quick and easy it is to navigate using your mouse in AutoCAD and AutoCAD Electrical in this case. Also as well, your left-hand mouse button tends to be your Select tool. So if I hover over, let's say, that line there, you can see it highlight. AutoCAD has a default highlight setting, so if I click now using the left-hand mouse button, you'll see it actually selects that line that forms part of that panel layout. If I hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and then left-click again on that line, it deselects it. Just a click on an object will select it. Holding down Shift and a left-hand click will deselect it. Now, the right-hand mouse button is very important. If I don't select any objects or a command and I right-click, you'll see there is the default right-hand mouse button context-sensitive shortcut menu, or the shortcut menu for short, for obvious reasons. And you'll notice I can repeat previous commands there, just by hovering there. I can go to the clipboard, cut, copy and paste. I can isolate objects and hide objects and end the object isolation. We'll look at that later. I can undo a pan and a zoom. I've got pan, zoom, I've got steering wheels, which we don't really need to touch on in this particular case. We're only working in a 2D environment. Steering wheels tend to be more adaptive to a 3D environment. Action recorder, we can record our movements as small macros if we want to. We've got selection, so we can select an edge, a face, but again, that's more 3D orientated. I've got quick select, where I can quick select a global group of objects. I've got quick calc, find, and options that we looked at earlier when we were setting the open and save. I'll just hit escape there to lose that shortcut menu. Now that shortcut menu is also context sensitive. So if I go up here to the ribbon and click on the line command, and I select, let's say, this corner here. Now my object snaps aren't on, so I go down here, snap on, select that endpoint there and come down to that endpoint there and click again. So I've drawn that line, AutoCAD's waiting for me to draw another one. I can right click and I can undo that last segment. So it's context sensitive to the line command itself. I'll just hit escape there to cancel the line command. So you can see all of those tools there on the mouse give you that heads up display that you can see on the screen at all times. Very, very useful. Left-hand mouse button, right-hand mouse button, and obviously the wheel, and using the wheel as a button on the mouse can make your life much, much more efficient when using AutoCAD Electrical. I previously mentioned model and layout tabs when we were looking at the status bar. Now, down on the status bar at the bottom of the screen, you've got the model button that I mentioned, but here you've got the model tab button, and you've also got the layout button, which takes us into that other view, as we discussed previously. So if I click on this button here, that goes back to model. Now, there is another way of displaying model and layout in AutoCAD. Some people use it, some people don't. If you right-click on this model button here, you can display the layout and model tabs. If I click on that now, you'll see now that we have some tabs here at the bottom of the drawing area. They do the same thing. If I click on layout there, if I click on model there, you can see I can toggle between the two. The nice thing about these tabs though is if I right-click on them, they have a shortcut menu. I can hide them again. As you can see, if I click hide layout and model tabs, they go again. I have to go and click here on the model button and display the layout and model tabs again. But if I right-click on the layout 1 tab, for example, I can go into things like drafting standard setup. I can activate a previous layout. I can move or copy. I can rename and so on. If I actually make that layout 1 current, I'll just hit escape there to lose the right-hand menu and click on layout 1 tab. If I right-click on it now and go into Page Setup Manager, I can actually start setting up page setups for those particular layout tabs. I'll just close that because we're not going to do that right now. If I right-click on the Model tab, notice I've got the same options, but the Model tab has to be current. Right-click, and I can set a page setup for the Model tab as well if I wish. Sometimes you do that for the Model tab, sometimes you don't. Normally what you would do is plot from the Layout tab. So you make your layout current, right-click, and go to Plot here. That opens up the Plot dialog box, and then using a page setup here that you've set up, which we haven't done so yet, you would then plot your drawing. You can obviously use these tabs if you want to. I personally, as an instructor and a user, prefer them. I like to have them there so that I can see what I'm doing, plus I can use the right-hand shortcut menu to work with them whenever I want to. It's entirely up to you, but for the purposes of this course, they will be switched on. When you first start using AutoCAD Electrical, your screen will look like this. Apart from the fact that we have the demo project set up for this particular section on the training course. We'll come back to that later. You'll notice I've been using Save As a lot in this particular section as well. Save As is not a default setting in AutoCAD Electrical. You can see there it is, up on the Quick Access toolbar, Save As. If you click on this little flyout here, you'll see that Save As has a tick next to it. All you've got to do is select Save As in that menu, and you'll see the tick appear. The tick indicates that Save As is displayed on the Quick Access toolbar. So when I click on Save As, it gives me the option to save the drawing as and save it in a folder somewhere. I'll just cancel that now. Let's look now at AutoCAD DWT files. Now a DWT is a template file that you open up a DWG from, even if it is a blank template. So let's try that now. I'm going to go up to the New icon here on the Quick Access toolbar. When I click on New, it takes me to the default template folder that's set up when AutoCAD Electrical is installed. And you can see there's all these DWT files represented by these little red icons here. However, how do you know which DWT to use? Look at this big long list. All different standards, different countries, different sheet sizes. Which one do I use? Some of them are more explanatory than others. For example, AutoCAD Electrical, AutoCAD Electrical IEC. IEC is the European metric standard for electrical, so we wouldn't use that one. AutoCAD Electrical without the IEC is in inches. It's just a default AutoCAD Electrical template. AutoCAD.DWT is just a blank imperial drawing. AutoCAD ISO.DWT is a blank metric drawing. Some of them are a bit more descriptive. If I come down the list, ANSI, American National Standards Institute, and the A, Bs and Cs are sheet sizes. If I come down to DIN standards, A0, A1 are sheet sizes, and DIN is a European metric standard. But if you didn't know that, and I wasn't telling you that, how would you know which one to use? Sometimes you have to look them up. Sometimes, though, you get descriptions inside the DWT file. However, in this particular dialog box, they're not displayed. So how do we get these descriptions to display? What we do is we switch on the AutoCAD Startup variable. So I'm actually going to go and use the AutoCAD DWT there. I'm not going to use the electrical one. I'm just going to go for a blank imperial drawing. Click on Open. That opens up a blank new drawing. You saw it flicker slightly there. It's opening up a new DWG, which AutoCAD sequentially is called Drawing 8 DWG. Now, take the crosshair to the center of the screen and just type the word Startup, all one word. Because we have dynamic input switched on, as you can see, it all comes up next to the crosshair there. Select Startup on the menu that appears. We'll look at dynamic input later on in the course, and you now get a prompt that will follow you around with the crosshair. In the input box, type 1 and press Enter. Now, in AutoCAD Electrical, we have just flicked a switch, if you'll pardon the pun. We've actually switched on the Startup dialog box. So what we'll do in the next video is we'll have a look at how that Startup dialog box works. At the moment though, we've got it all switched on and we're ready to go. In the last video, what we'd done is we'd set up the Startup variable, we'd switched it on, and we'd set it to 1, which means that the dialog box is now on. So how do we get that dialog box? Well, we go back up to the Quick Access toolbar and click on New. Now we get a dialog box that is very different. Now we've got a grayed out icon here on the left, open a drawing. We haven't actually opened and saved any drawings really yet, so we won't be able to display any drawings there, so that's why it's grayed out. The next one along though is very easy to understand. Start from scratch. You have imperial, feet and inches, and metric. These are those two templates that I pointed out. Imperial is AutoCAD.DWT, default blank imperial drawing. Metric is AutoCAD ISO.DWT, which is a default blank metric drawing. Moving along to the next icon, use a template. There's that list of templates that we had in the dialog box before we switched on the Startup variable. Now some of these have got a description. So AutoCAD DWT that I used is a normal English feet and inches drawing template. If I come down that list a bit, there's AutoCAD ISO, which is a normal international metric drawing template. Now the electrical ones, strangely enough, don't have a description. That's because it's in the title. AutoCAD Electrical IEC means that it's an AutoCAD Electrical IEC, which is metric European. So that's a metric template. AutoCAD Electrical DWT without the IEC or without the ISO is an imperial inches default electrical template. If I come down that list, you'll see that you've got things like DIN A1. That's a European metric standard with an A1 sheet size. Come up a bit, we've got some ANSI ones here. American National Standards Institute, and A portrait is the sheet size and the orientation. If I select that though, no description because it's all in the title. I can also browse, and that takes me straight back to that template folder that we looked at earlier. I'll just cancel that there. We can also, if we want to create and use our own settings instead of using ones from a template, we can use Advanced Setup or Quick Setup. We don't really need to do that. We've got this great big list here of templates that we can use in all of our AutoCAD electrical projects. So let's set up a new electrical drawing. I'm going to go up here and use AutoCAD Electrical.DWT. Click on OK. That gives me a nice blank drawing, all set up to inches because I selected AutoCAD Electrical and not the IEC one. What I'll do now is go up to Save As, and I'm going to save that as Startup Variable. So I'm going to put that in capital to show it's a variable like that, and then I'll type that in there, Startup Variable. Notice it's defaulted to that 2010 drawing that we set up in the settings in the options earlier. I'll click on Save there. That's now saved. You can see the path. Now, if you've got a big long path like that, just click on Save here, not Save As, and then all it does is show the file name. Just a little bit easier when you're trying to work out what your file's called. And then what we'll do, we'll go to Demo Project, right-click, Add Active Drawing, apply the project default values like so. Takes a few seconds, and there it is there. The nice thing is now it's in the project, I can use these arrows here to toggle between drawings in the project. So that's my model and layout tabs. If I go back to using the mouse now, and you'll see they update as I go through. I can go back now, just by clicking on the arrows, I can toggle between the drawings in the project, which is a really nice way of moving around. So what we've done there is we've looked at Save As and how to get it on the Quick Access toolbar. We've set the Startup variable so that when we click on New, we get our Startup dialog box. And what we've also done is learned how to save an active drawing to our demo project. We'll go into Projects, and obviously electrical drawings in a lot more detail as we work throughout the course.